I don't know if the glue that they are putting your eyelashes on is seeping into your brain, but you are an idiot. You just beheaded that guy? You're supposed to give head, not behead. Remember January 6th? That was the day that I had just switched over. I'd been doing eggs with olive oil, and I switched back to real butter that morning. And then I was watching TV, and people were freaking out because a few people with a Lego set or something showed up at the Capitol. Anyway, let's talk about boner pills for a minute, and then we'll move on the other side. Sydney Sweeney's bath water here. That's pretty good. All right, everybody. Hello. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is October 13th, 2025. And yeah, it is a great day. Today is a day that will be remembered worldwide for a long time. How many longs was that? That was a lot of longs. The hostages are home. Obviously, we're going to cover that. We're going to cover Donald Trump speaking at the Israeli Knesset. There right now is a major meeting about to take place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, with about 20 countries. The rewriting of the rules in the Middle East and beyond is happening right now. It is 100% because of Donald Trump thinking about this area, this part of the world, this war-torn part of the world in a new way. It is miraculous. Nobody knew if this was ever going to happen. It does not mean that it all magically is going to be great tomorrow. And we'll cover some of that stuff. Like, it doesn't just split away ancient hatreds and all of the bad stuff that happened or potentially could happen, but there is a path, there is an avenue towards a more peaceful world right now. It really is an incredible day. You know, we knew last night that the hostage release was happening today. They said they thought it was going to start at about 2 a.m. Eastern time. And I went to bed at about 11 p.m. and I could not sleep. I mean, I was wide awake till about 1 a.m. Then I finally did fall asleep, woke up, saw the videos that obviously we're going to show you some of that I'm sure you guys have seen already. And again, as I've said repeatedly for the last 2 years now, it does not matter if you don't particularly care about the Jews. It doesn't matter if you don't particularly care about Israel and everything else from an American perspective. But that part of the world looms large over everything. And the fact that the temperature is being dialed down now, the fact that other countries are suddenly like, yeah, the Jews, they've got this little New Jersey style size place over there. We're just going to kind of let them be. Their enemies realize you can't take them out militarily. Like, we really could be on a runway for an incredible period in the world. And I hope that people will get on board that. I hope that people who have had Trump derangement syndrome will understand that. I hope that people who have fought him tooth and nail every which way, I know most of them won't. I hope that the progressives come around and the jihadists give up. I know that that's a big ask across the board, but there's a lot of good stuff. Before we dive into all of that, though, let me just say real quick, because we are heading to Australia tomorrow. We leave tomorrow. We don't get there till Thursday, which is pretty nutty. It's a 6-hour flight to San Francisco and then like a 14-hour flight to Melbourne. But on October 18th, I'll be in Melbourne. October 21st, I will be in Sydney. And October 27th, I'll be in Brisbane. And then I have a bunch of other private events and dinners and things like that. DaveRubin.com/events. We kept opening up the VIP tickets because that's what everyone wants, the 2-second hug. I just turned into Trump right there. Everyone wants a 2-second hug. Melbourne, we can't open up anymore, I don't think. So they're fully sold out, the VIP tickets. Regular tickets are available, and VIP and regular are available at the other venues. Okay, let's get cracking. So I thought an interesting way before we get into the videos of the release, the hostage release, and Trump's speech at the Knesset, which was maybe his best speech ever. His level of humor and off the cuff and serious and important, it was just peak Trump across the board. But I thought we'd start with this. This was from one of the Sunday shows yesterday. This is JD Vance talking to Kristen Welker on NBC Meet the Press, and talking about how Trump just refused to look at this part of the world in the traditional ways. And I think that will set us up very nicely here. Take a look.
Can you tell me exactly when are the hostages going to be released? When will we see them?
Well, it really should be any moment now, Kristen. The President of the United States is planning to travel to the Middle East to greet the hostages Monday morning Middle Eastern time, which should be late Sunday night or very early Monday morning here in the United States. So you can't say exactly the moment they will be released, but we have every expectation. That's why the president is going, that he will be greeting the hostages early next week. It's a monumental thing. It's great, of course, for their families. But I really do think that it shows what happens when you go outside the traditional failed diplomatic routes and actually try something new. It's kind of crazy to me, Kristen, that for our entire history, we've never had a president who's been willing to sit down both with the Gulf Arab states and the Israelis to try to tap some unconventional people to just get a deal done. And I think Americans should be proud of the entire administration. They should be proud of their country because we've worked so hard to make peace in the Middle East happen, and we are right on the cusp of bringing these hostages home. It'll be a great moment for our country, a great moment for the world. But I really do think the lesson here is that Donald Trump refused to go down the failed traditional diplomatic pathway. He cut his own Trump diplomatic pathway, and because of that, it was successful.
So I think you can see why I wanted to start there because, 2 years into this war, we had, a Biden, I can't even call it a Biden presidency. We had an auto pen presidency with the other lady and the guy with dementia. And they did everything in the most conventional way, right? Pressure Israel, threaten to cut their weapons, all of those things. Not figure out ways to get everybody to sit down and talk this thing out, not apply military pressure, make it clear to Iran you're going to be able to do whatever you want. Oh, Hezbollah, you want to lob rockets in, Houthis, you want to shoot rockets in, all of those things. And it did not work. Then Trump comes in and he basically says, peace through strength. Israel, you want to take out Iran's nuclear situation, go ahead. On day 12, we'll drop a couple bombs, wrap that thing up real quick. You have your pager operation with Hezbollah, basically allowing them to take care of business. So the other countries there, or let's say the bad actors, would basically be like, oh, we can't beat these guys militarily. It may be the dream to wipe out all the Jews, but we just can't do it. Then Trump starts talking to the Gulf allies, and the Gulf allies who now have thriving countries as they've become more capitalistic and as they've become more tolerant in the right sense of tolerance, and as they've signed on board the Abraham Accords, you start seeing countries that are like, let's move past the ancient hatreds of the 20th century and move into something new. And that is what Trump did. Again, I don't know how often I reference it. It's got to be 3 times a week now on this show. And maybe we'll start playing more clips of it. But that speech that Trump gave in Saudi Arabia, I think was the genesis of all of this. It was one of the first places that he went to when he was president. He's got a bunch of the Arab leaders there, and he doesn't threaten anybody, right? He says, if you want to take part in American success, we are here. Here's our hand. Join us. But stop blowing shit up. Stop with the terrorism. Stop with the ancient hatreds. Get over it. And now we are seeing the fruits of that. So it's just very important. I like what JD said. They're outside of the traditional failed routes. That is exactly what has happened now. And as of just a few hours ago, for the first time in over 2 years, Hamas no longer has any living hostages in its captivity. Here's Caitlin Collins and Wolf Blitzer this morning reporting from Israel.
And welcome back to CNN's breaking news coverage as we are covering a historic moment here in Israel, because for the first time in 2 years, over 2 years, 738 days, Hamas holds no living hostages in its captivity for the first time.
Okay, so they don't have any living hostages. Now, they did not complete their end of the bargain, and we'll find out more about this, but they did not transfer all of the remains. They were there. It's a little unclear how many people. I think it was still around 20 bodies that were there. God only knows what condition they're in. They were supposed to transfer everything. They did not do all of that, but let's put that aside. In terms of the living people, which is the most important thing, they are out of that evil hellhole and they are home with their families. Here's a bit on how they transported them and the special forces that were involved in getting medical attention and all that stuff.
They understand that many of these hostages are in very difficult health conditions. And so they have the Red Cross meeting them inside Gaza at 2 to 3 different points within the enclave. They'll then be driven to Israeli special forces and transferred to the Raim base that sits along the Gaza border. They'll receive initial medical checks there, be reunited with immediate family members, and then flown to some regional hospitals here in Israel. Like I said, though, the anticipation around the release of these hostages could not be higher.
And let's just jump into, there's obviously dozens and dozens of these videos. We're only going to show you one. This is hostage. His name is Matan Zankur. And here is him reuniting with his mother after 738 days. Just incredible. I mean, try to imagine that. 738 days underneath the ground in a tunnel being fed nothing. They're already coming out with stories how the last couple of days they started feeding them like crazy and cleaned them up and showered them and all that kind of stuff. But never knowing if you're going to come home. You know, the funny thing is for all the people that, you know, the lunatics out in the streets chanting from river to the sea and accuse Israel of genocide and all these things, all these lunatics, what would be the purpose of a nation state if not to defend and retrieve its citizens? Remember, for anyone that's upset about the amount of Gazans that were killed, which is all the fault of Hamas for doing this in the first place and for using their own people as human shields, if you're upset by that, what you should have demanded, what they should have, if you wanted to protest, you should have been out protesting, screaming, release the hostages. If in San Diego, a group of terrorists came in, killed about 1,000 kids at a music festival, kidnapped a bunch of people, beheaded people, raped, tortured, blah, 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 and then brought them into Mexico, what would we have done in the United States? We would have bombed the shit out of Mexico in a far worse way than Israel did. And you could absolutely make the case that would be totally justified. A nation state exists to protect its citizens, not other citizens. Israel is the only nation in the world that has been told to feed the very people who are dedicated to trying to destroy it. Anyway, let's leave that there for a second and get to Trump. Here he is traveling en route to Israel. And I do want to say before we start all this, Trump, like, I don't know what this guy is, well, I guess we know he's drinking a lot of Diet Coke, right? So the man's running basically on Diet Coke and McDonald's from what we understand. He is 79 years old. Try to imagine the levels of meetings he's in constantly. Try to imagine the jet lag flying now. He's flying to Israel. He's constantly doing all these things and he's just at his best across the board. Here he is on Air Force One en route to Israel talking about what was about to happen.
Muslim and Arab countries are all cheering. Everybody's cheering at one time. That's never happened before. Usually if you have one cheering, the other isn't. The other is the opposite. This is the first time everybody is amazed and they're thrilled, and it's an honor to be involved. And we're going to have an amazing time, and it's going to be something that's never happened before.
Okay, sorry, that was obviously the lead up to him getting on Air Force One. Now we'll do two clips from one. He's on Air Force One en route to Israel. So this is what, about 12 hours ago, where he officially said the war is over.
President Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, has not gone so far as to say the war is over. In your view, is the war between Israel and Hamas over?
The war is over. The war is over, okay? Do you understand that?
Pretty clear. I think we know what he meant by that. Yeah, the war is over. Now, again, to repeat what I said at the top of the show, it does not mean that peace in like the most like end of Phantom Menace, you know, Boss Nass standing up there with the Gungans. And who else was up there? You got Obi-Wan and Anakin, little Anakin and everybody, and they're holding that orb and yelling, peace. Like, it doesn't mean that like we're at that. But we're at the end of the fighting for now. And if the Gazans decide, we will take this little sliver of land that sits on the Mediterranean, that's just a few miles south of Tel Aviv, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Think of all the money and focus and attention that is going to be put on Gaza now. And if you decide to build a civil society, a decent place, you will have every opportunity to have one of the most successful places literally on planet Earth. They have to decide if they want to do that. But the reason there will be broader peace, regardless of what they do, is because all the other countries, Hezbollah in Lebanon, gone, as I said, the Iranians, like, it doesn't mean that they're thrilled right now and like, oh, yay, Israel here and the Ayatollah is just so great. But they've realized, boy, they did take our entire country in 12 days. Like, they've realized they're here. They're here. Get on board. And in some sense, that is what Trump is better at than everything. Trump understands reality. You know, we have a lot of people that demand that the world be what they want it to be. Trump kind of sees the world as it is. And then he's like, well, what can I do to make it a little bit better? And that is what is happening right now. I thought this was an incredible, a really, really incredible moment. Peter Doocy was on the plane with Trump en route to Israel. And listen to what Trump says about his life, his legacy, and whether he will get into heaven.
You had talked a couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, you know, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but I've made life a lot better for a lot of people.
Yeah, Trump, you're going to heaven. And it's interesting, I might be in heaven right now as I'm on Air Force One. Like maybe the reality that you're creating on this earth is as close to heaven as we can ever really understand as mortal beings, something like that. But even the way he laughs it off, like, I don't know if I can, like he understands he's done things. He's lied, there's been wars, there's this, that, like I cannot imagine, I genuinely cannot imagine a world leader being more humble and thoughtful and humorous about what his existential crisis in his own life is as he is trying to make the world a better place. Like it's absolutely, absolutely extraordinary. And you know what? I can tell you this, Donald Trump, and we're going to get him now to Tel Aviv and the Knesset. That's kind of the center of maybe where mortals can get up to heaven. Like maybe there's something going on in that holy land, and there's an awful lot of people that will be praying for you to one day get to heaven. But you're right, you might be creating it here on earth right now. So here's a little compilation of Trump arriving in Tel Aviv with Netanyahu and then getting a standing ovation at the Israeli Knesset, which of course is their parliament.
מסדר יעבור לדום, מסדר דום.
All right, so there were tons and tons of other videos of applause and, you know, just the general, you can really catch the sentiment in Israel, the deep appreciation for this man. Let me show you, we're going to show you a little bit from his speech, but here he is talking about the hostages are home and the future could be bright.
After so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. You think we settled 8 wars in 8 months? I'm now including this one, by the way, if that's okay. They may say, well, that was quick, because yesterday I was saying 7, but now I can say 8. The hostages are back. The hostages are back. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together.
Isn't that something? Donald Trump, by not throwing Israel under the bus, not doing what the Biden administration did, where they were cutting arms and they were not helping them at the UN and everything else, by leading the world again, peace through strength, They eliminated most of the bad guys. Again, it doesn't mean that nobody bad is out there and there aren't people that will love to shred this and all of those things, but that the armies, the militaries, the terrorist units that existed to destroy Israel basically are blown apart. Israel and America are tight. I think there are philosophical and religious and quite literally existential reasons for both our countries that is good. And that the other Arab nations were then like, oh, I guess whatever little dream we had left of ridding this place of Israel, it's over, so let's get on board. And then you can share in Israeli technology. You can learn how to make the desert bloom. They took a desert and a swamp and turned it into one of the most beautiful places on earth. You can share in all of that stuff. The Israelis are always trying to share that stuff. They export water to Jordan, right? While Jordan is not particularly friendly to them, but it basically works. So it was very, very clear that the Israelis were unbelievably appreciative that Trump was there. Here's Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana talking about Trump's place in, I guess you could call it Jewish history.
Another American president, but as a giant of Jewish history, one for whom we must look back 2.5 millennia into the mists of time to find a parallel, Cyrus the Great. You, President Donald J. Trump, are a colossus who will be enshrined in the pantheon of history. Thousands of years from now, Mr. President, the Jewish people will remember you. We are a nation that remembers.
Yeah, and I guess all of Jewish history is remembering, and it's usually remembering not great things, but then we end up still being here, we eat and we do it again. You know, it's also interesting if you think of how different this is from the previous administration, not only Biden, and again, it's like even talking about Biden is so ridiculous at this point because he obviously wasn't in charge. But do you remember when Israel was going into Rafah and it was all eyes on Rafah, and Kamala Harris said she studied the maps of Rafah and they shouldn't go in? And then Bibi was like, yeah, we're going in regardless of what they say. And that's where they killed Sinwar, who was the head of Hamas. And that's where they also got some of the living hostages out. Like, think how profoundly ridiculous our previous administration was. And again, whether you don't care about Jews or you don't care about Israel, Hamas killed 47 Americans. There are still the remains, because not all the remains came out, of Americans somewhere in Gaza right now. This was a nice moment because obviously Trump did not get the Nobel Prize, but Israel is going to give him their highest honor.
I have submitted your nomination to be the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize, Israel's highest award. As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. But I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend.
So the other prize, obviously he's referring to the Nobel Prize. We'll have more on that in just a second. But again, we're going to put this portion of the show away for now. But this is a really, really good moment for the world. Like, I hope that everyone watching this, you're feeling what I'm feeling, which regardless of whether you care about this area that much or anything else, there's hope. Like, the world is turning towards something good. Everything always feels like it's turning the wrong way, right? All the woke stuff, the gender stuff, the racism stuff, the jihadis on our street, Antifa, the border, like everything always feels like it's tilting the wrong way. And then occasionally something can happen that can tilt things right. And I think that is, and I mean that kind of literally and figuratively, like tilt things right. And things, I think, are a little more balanced right now. And whether Donald Trump ultimately ever gets the Nobel Prize or not, I know he loves those old institutions, right? He loves the New York Times, even though he shits on the New York Times. He loves corporate media, even though he shits on the media. So I would say, Donald Trump, it doesn't really matter. You've done something way, way, way more important. And this is just the beginning. But the world is heading in the right way. And I would hope that not only everyone watching this, but like all the pundits that you watch that analyze these things, if you're watching somebody that is not happy right now, or I just have no doubt, we did it the other day when it was announced that the hostages were going to be released and there was nothing positive tweeted out by Bernie or AOC or Rashida or even Tucker and some of these other people. And it's like, if you can't see goodness right now, I don't know why. If the person you're watching cannot see goodness right now, I don't know why you are watching them. Let's talk about Harvest Right for a second, and then we'll have a bit on the kerfuffle around the Nobel Prize, because there's some funny stuff. Just a sec. Let's face it, guys, eating healthy can be a challenge when life gets busy, but the Harvest Right freeze dryer has completely transformed the way one approaches meal prep. With the new single prep session, it's now possible to store homemade, nutrient-rich meals for months or even years without preservatives and without stress. From roasted vegetables to smoothie ingredients to full-grain bowls, almost anything can be freeze-dried. When it's time to eat, just rehydrate a prepared meal and enjoy healthy, effortless food perfect for those always on the go. It's like having a reliable backup plan for every weeknight dinner emergency. Even snacks get a serious upgrade. Freeze-dried apples, strawberries, and mangoes become go-to treats, naturally sweet with no added sugar. They're not only satisfying, but also kid-approved. For anyone tired of relying on takeout or watching fresh produce go to waste, this is the kitchen upgrade that makes all the difference, and it's a serious money saver too. Take control of your meals at harvestright.com/Rubin. All right. So in some sense, to the backdrop of what is an unbelievably extraordinary moment in the Middle East, it seems almost silly or small to talk about Trump not getting the Nobel Prize. But I think there is a reason to talk about it, because it gets to the institutions, the media, and the machine that has constantly lied about Trump as he has done good things. So check this out. This is from the last couple of days. So Trump did not get the Nobel Peace Prize. This is Nobel Committee Chair Jorgen Friedness being asked why Trump did not get the prize.
U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and he'd like to have it. He even said that it would be an insult to the United States if he doesn't get it. What does as the chairman of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, think of this, and how has this campaign-like activity by the president and his supporters, domestically and internationally, affected the deliberations and the thinking in the committee?
In the long history of the Nobel Peace Prize, I think this committee have seen any type of campaign, media attention. We receive thousands and thousands of letters every year of people wanting to say what for them leads to peace. This committee sits in a room filled with the portraits of all laureates, and that room is filled with both courage and integrity. So we base only our decision on the work and the will of Alfred Nobel.
Oh, so you guys only base it on courage and nobility and who's creating peace, except you didn't give it to the guy who's actually creating peace. It should be noted that Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize before he was even president. Once he had been elected, they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. He had done absolutely nothing, and you 100% can put blame, certainly on the Obama administration and then subsequently on the Biden whatever administration, for how out of whack the Middle East got. That's one thing. They also gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Yasser Arafat, who is the architect and you could say forefather of Palestinian terrorism that not only affected Israel, but was exported across the world. Completely ridiculous. But okay, so you might say, but that's just small. It's just kind of nothing relative to the goodness happening in the world. But now I want to connect this to why so many people have Trump derangement syndrome, can't see goodness, or can only see Nazis when good things are happening, et cetera, et cetera. So let's jump over to The Daily Show. Now, as you know, Jon Stewart created this. Well, he didn't create it. He was the 20-year host of the thing. It was hosted by Craig Kilborn before him. But they had a 20-year run where they kept telling us more young people get their news from The Daily Show than anywhere else, which I always thought was complete nonsense. It sounded good. It was complete nonsense. And Stewart could have been a good Bill Maher-esque liberal, decided to go all in on the leftist craziness. Now he, I think, hosts it once a week, and then they just have a rotating crop of just comedians you've never heard of. So I have never heard of this guy, who's now one of the rotating hosts of The Daily Show. Doesn't strike me as particularly talented or anything else. His name is Josh Johnson. Here he is with a very prepackaged, I'm reading it off a teleprompter, these are obviously jokes, we'll tell you when to laugh monologue, as they always do. But I will give him credit because he kind of, in a sort of weird way, kind of goes pro-Trump, and the audience doesn't know exactly what to do.
That's right. A peace deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas, and it's based on the framework Donald Trump proposed, which means another thing you almost never hear, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I gotta give Donald Trump some props here, you know? It doesn't happen a lot. In fact, I can only think of this, the COVID vaccine, and Home Alone 2. Either way, this is a reason to celebrate. And look, if this deal holds, maybe we should give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. Or, and you won't like this either, we let him burn the Epstein files.
Okay, so they're not even sure what they're laughing at. You don't have to worry about this guy or whatever, but I'm showing you this because now we're going to connect it to some more mainstream stuff about how things are kind of turning pro-Trump, because you can see they can't, it doesn't really work anymore. Trump has done so many good things, and this thing is so freaking obvious. 10 years ago, if you would have said to literally any American, is peace in the Middle East good? Everybody would say yes. Now, the progressives don't want it anymore, right? Let's just put that aside right now. But that guy, like, it's just nothing, right? You're just reading a script. You're nobody. He's whatever. But it's interesting that when he basically says, hey, and Trump kind of did some good stuff, maybe he should get the Nobel Prize, the audience is kind of booing him. But it's like, don't you guys want peace in the Middle East unless you've all been so radicalized that you're in bed with the jihadists, which as progressives you probably are. But now let me show you how this is connected to sort of the rest of the mainstream media stuff and how things are kind of turning. Listen to this from Clay Travis. Guys, the Washington Post has begun to transform its opinion section. This was published yesterday. I can only imagine how outraged the subscribers are. Credit to Jeff Bezos for kicking many of the woke crew to the curb. And it's a piece in the Washington Post that says, yes, Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. His Gaza agreement, though still fragile, adds to an unprecedented peacemaking record. And that's the point, guys. The Washington Post, which has been radically anti-Trump, which has been in bed with the Democrats and all of those things, they're now coming around and going, oh, peace in the Middle East, it's pretty good. And that shows you that the culture is shifting, which is why when, again, I already forgot the guy's name, the Josh whatever at the Daily Show, it doesn't even matter what his name is. Don't even tell me again, it doesn't matter. But they're up there just reading a script that anyone could read while sitting in that chair, and they don't even know what to do with their own audience because they've radicalized them in that crazy way. But now it gets even wilder just to show you how the truth, and maybe this is the deepest part of all of this. Somehow, despite all of the bullshit, despite all of the lies, despite all of the main things that the mainstream media does besides algorithmic manipulation and bots and everything else, the truth rises. And then when the truth rises, people start kind of following it. So here are two people who are probably not great fans of Donald Trump, Condoleezza Rice and a lady you may have heard of called Hillary Clinton. And here they are, commending Donald Trump on peace in the Middle East.
Because ultimately the Palestinian people have to own this solution. And we're a long way from that. But for right now, right at this moment, the Trump administration deserves a lot of credit for the broad-based support that this 20-point plan has.
It's an excellent point. And on that...
And Nora, if I could just add... Yeah, if I could just add, because I think it's important to put the context around this, as Condi did, with the dismantling of Hezbollah, with the successful attacks on Iran, and with a new regime in Syria that is looking for some kind of accommodation with Israel, this set of conditions has never existed in recent times. And so shame on us if we don't take advantage of it. And also, it should encourage the regional powers to see it as an opening that we've never had before.
Guys, that's Hillary Clinton. Now, she doesn't say Trump, 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 but she is saying Trump, Trump, Trump. When you say that Hezbollah is gone, it's because Trump allowed Israel to do what they got to do. When you say that Iran's been hampered, it's because Trump allowed Israel to do what they got to do. When you say that the Syrian regime, which is it's kind of still jihadi or whatever, but they might want to join the rest of the world right now in the Gulf states and everything else, it's because Israel was able to deal with them because of Trump. So all of the what did she say? The set of conditions. Well, that set of conditions was set because of strong American leadership. And remember, not one American soldier died, not one boot was on the ground or anything else. We just created the military conditions and I would say the the behind the scenes conditions, because the Arab countries don't want things blowing up all the time either, the decent Arab countries, and now more and more are coming around that. But also Condi makes a decent point too, which is, yes, it will be up to the Palestinians now. It's their move, right? Like the Israelis are going to leave Gaza. And remember, on October 6, 2023, there was not one pesky Jew in Gaza. You guys could have built Tel Aviv on the water over there. You decided to build a giant psychotic underground army and booby trap things and create a murder machine. Okay, you had your run with that. But now you are going to get money pumped in. You're going to have the focus of the world. You're going to have not one Israeli is going to want to go back in. They want nothing to do with the place. They should build a wall that's 10 times the size of the wall that Egypt built. Egypt never opened that door. Very strange. But she's right. Condi's right. You've got to give up that stuff. Actually, can we jump to the clip of the Nova, the new restaurant that's opening in Gaza now? Maybe that'll fit here. So to that point, I'm going to move up a clip that we're going to play a little bit later. If you want to see what is going on in Gaza right now, look, they have got to give it up. They have got to give it up. They can't do this. Now, we've been told that there's been a genocide in Gaza and they were all starving and everything else. Well, look at the new restaurant that opened in Gaza this week. Its name is Nova. Nova, of course, was the music festival where they killed hundreds of people and kidnapped people and raped women and everything else. Look at this restaurant. Does this strike you as a place that people are, is my audio playing still? Yeah, so does this strike you as a place that was undergoing a genocide? Do any of these people look hungry? How were they able to build all that? But the point is, that's just fine that they built that. That's great. They're building a new restaurant. I'm into the plants on the roof kind of thing. I do like that. They do a lot of that in Tel Aviv, by the way. But they named it after the music festival where they killed all the people. So that is now up to the Gazans. You got to decide. So the genocide was a complete lie. The famine was a complete lie. Everything was a complete lie. That will all continue to be exposed and exposed and exposed. But you guys now have to decide. You'll be able to open up restaurants. You'll be able to start new institutions. You're going to be able to build a beautiful boardwalk on the beach. And are you going to name stores Hitler like you had before in Gaza? That store doesn't exist anymore, but there used to literally be a store called Hitler. Are you going to name things after the festivals where you killed all the people, or are you going to take this incredible chance? And we shall see on that. Now, again, to my point of how everything's shifting because Trump's doing such obvious good work here. Here is Abby Phillip over on CNN, and she's calling out Obama because he put up a tweet about this peace deal and didn't mention Trump. I mean, this is wild.
Honestly, it's not unfair to say if President Obama's going to write a whole post about a peace deal, maybe he should acknowledge the president that brokered it.
If Donald Trump gets a peace deal, he deserves.
Abby, I've been rather critical of you on this program. I don't think you're the brightest bulb. I think you're pretty crappy at your job generally, but you got one, and I'd like to golf clap you. Yeah, Obama, his statement was ridiculous. If you saw the thing that we only showed it for like a split second there, it was Donald Trump retweeting Barack Obama, basically saying, you could have mentioned, it was Donald Trump Jr. retweeting Barack Obama, basically saying, you could have mentioned Donald Trump. And it's like, Obama, just watching his descent into nothingness, it's rather extraordinary. David Sachs, who is now our crypto and AI czar, here he is talking about how, of course, anyone besides Trump would have won the Nobel had his name just been different.
I do think that a record like this would absolutely win any other president the Nobel Prize, or at least get him a nomination. President Trump has ended 7 wars in 7 months before this one. This would be the 8th if he pulls it off. So
7.
Yeah,
Obama won with nothing.
Obama won just for being elected.
He just got elected and he got the Nobel Prize. It was just kind of like a gold.
Yeah, so people are kind of over it. They're over Barack Obama. Abby Phillip is over just, how do you not credit Trump for all of this? Clearly, CBS News now, which is going to be headed up by Barry Weiss, that's going to go a little less wackadoodle lefty. Like, the thing is turning, and we need to see it, acknowledge it, and just for all the people that are going to be endlessly hateful. Yes, do I think the progressives are coming back from the abyss? Probably not. We got this weird woke right thing with a couple of these people. Some of these people may come back into the fold, and we should always be trying to get as many people to be part of a wide center as possible. But it is great to see people calling out this nonsense. We'll have more on the future of the Middle East, which is looking quite bright in just a second. But first, be better now. If you or your partner is over 55 and dealing with bladder urgency, you know it's more than just a minor inconvenience. Trips, outings, and travels start to feel like they're all about finding the bathroom. And when one of you has a hard time, you both feel it. That's why so many people have turned to Betterman and Better Woman. These are clinically tested formulas trusted by thousands for more than 25 years. They help reduce urgency, cut down frequent trips, and support deeper, more restful sleep. All natural with no known side effects. They also give you something just as important: more confidence, more control, and more freedom to enjoy life together. Get them at BeBetterNow.com. That's BeBetterNow.com. And for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your first order with code Rubin10. Live fully with confidence and control. Okay, so the real question, and again, right now as we do this, I think they're setting up for this big conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, with about 20 world leaders, and they're going to lay out, we'll cover this all tomorrow, obviously, what a future vision for the Middle East will look like. But already Trump is saying that the Middle East will be rebuilt. There's a lot of rubble all over the place, whether that's the rubble in Tel Aviv from the rockets that came in from Iran, whether it's the obvious rubble of Gaza, whether it's the rubble that is in southern Lebanon because they were firing rockets relentlessly into Israel, et cetera, that there is a chance to rebuild right now. And if everyone would just stop fighting, then there's incredible opportunity on the other side. Here's Trump.
What guarantees did you give Hamas to persuade them that Israel will restart the bombing campaign once the hostages have been exchanged?
What did I do with respect to them? Well, I spoke a little bit tough, and that's what would happen. I mean, you have to speak tough. That's a tough world. That's a tough, as they say, neighborhood. And they're tough people. They're very tough people, and they're smart people. They're good negotiators. They have a lot of things going. They put that to good use. They're going to be very, very successful. But they knew the retribution would be tremendous, unsustainable. It would have been unsustainable. It would have been complete obliteration, and they didn't want that. And nobody wants it at this point. They want to get on with rebuilding the entire Middle East. It's not only Gaza. It's going to be the entire Middle East.
All right. So that is something. They got to the edge of the end of the world, right? They were about to be completely obliterated because Donald Trump was a man of his word. And how many times over the last few months did he say all of the hostages and now? And then they pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and they delayed and delayed and delayed. And then it was right about there. It was right about there, and now we got the hostages out. And again, all they had to do was release the hostages 2 years ago, and this would never have happened. Here's video of thousands of Palestinians now heading north towards Gaza City because they had been moved as Israel was literally searching house to house to find their citizens. They are now heading back to Gaza City, which also will largely have to be rebuilt. But again, they're going to get a shit ton of money from all kinds of countries, and if they want a peaceful civil society, they're going to have it.
The good is that obviously the ceasefire is holding. The ceasefire is working. These people feel free to make their way north. They are walking along a main seaside route along the Mediterranean, heading north towards Gaza City.
That's a great example, that video right there, of what I'm always talking about. It's the same seaside, Mediterranean seaside beach as Tel Aviv has. They've built boardwalks. They've built restaurants. They've built a bustling economic hub there, right? You guys can have that too if you don't have to have the rubble. You got water on one side and you got rubble on one side. What you could have is water on one side and beach restaurants on the other side. That would be much better, but it will be up to you. Here's Trump telling Ducey that the rebuild will start immediately.
If the ceasefire does hold, how long until we get to the part of the 20-point peace plan where developers can go in and make Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East?
Well, I don't know about the Riviera for a while, because you take a look at what you have. You have to get people taken care of first. But it's going to start really essentially immediately. I mean, they're going to have to start by removing a lot of the structures that you see that are down to the ground. I mean, it's blasted. This is like a demolition site. Almost the entire site is. So you have to get rid of what you have there. You have structures that are very dangerous. They're falling down. If they haven't fallen, they're going to fall down of their own volition. So that process, Peter, is going to start pretty much immediately.
In some sense, you really can't make this up, right? Whoever's running the simulation up there, wow, you really pulled off something crazy here, because not only did the man that they say was going to start World War III, who's evil, who's Hitler, blah, 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 starts bringing peace to the Middle East and gives us a more peaceful world. 7, 8 wars that are wrapping up right now, and like a glimmer of hope for a very troubled place. But then you hear a guy who spent his life building buildings, who put his name all over the skyline of New York City, who built, and now there are buildings in rubble, and he knows a little something about building. And again, all they'll have to do is say, we are done with the genocide attempt. We're going to let the Jews live there. You don't even have to have it so that they can even come in. You really don't. Like, that would be nice. That would be what true peace would be, that you'd have commerce and you'd have an ability to go back and forth and all of those things. I don't know that the Israelis really want that right now. Like, they're pretty scarred from this. I don't know how many Gazans they want in their country anymore. But that would be like the off peace. That's in the distance kind of thing, which is what Hillary said and what Trump said right there. Like, you don't get these things overnight. But what you could get right now is people coming in and building hotels and building something that will be civil and decent and that people will want to move to and be part of this reclamation project. That would be something. So let's put all of that down for a moment and then think about the other thing that's going on in the world, war-wise. And really there's stuff going on in Africa, actually, that's quite horrific. But the main thing, of course, over the last couple of years has been the Russia-Ukraine war. And it seems to me that as Trump settles this part of the world, he's going to focus on that part of the world. Here he is talking about Putin and that he now is also running out of time to settle this war.
What do you think you can take from these negotiations and this peace process into Moscow and try to end the Russia-Ukraine war?
I think what you can take is that never give up. Just never give up. Last week they killed over 7,000 soldiers. Mostly soldiers, and a little bit more, frankly, Russian soldiers than Ukraine soldiers last week. But think of it, every week they're losing from 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers. It's ridiculous. And I thought that would be one of my easier ones. I mean, when you settle something that's been going on for 31 and 32 years, that's, in theory, a lot harder than setting, something that's been going on for 3 years. But this is a war going on for 3 years, should have never started. Frankly, I give Ukraine credit for doing so well. I mean, they're good fighters. They're very good fighters. I really think that President Putin would look great if he got this settled. And I think he's going to settle it, but we're going to see. And if he doesn't, it's not going to be good for him.
All right, so I don't think today is the day to unpack the entire Russia-Ukraine war and everything, but I think it is the day to point to what Trump's saying there and take note of what he just said right there. Like, he's kind of saying to Putin, you see what's happening with the rest of the world. They're joining us again. We're settling things that are way older than your 2 or 3 year war. So how about you get on board this thing too? Like, he's actually now, I think, trying to give Putin a very subtle off-ramp. And by the way, the subtle off-ramp for Putin probably is getting some of Ukraine. It probably is. And Ukraine will have to deal with that. But you can see, and there's just, I think at this point, maybe here's the real point. At this point, there is no reason to believe that Donald Trump can't do it. Here's Melania Trump talking about how she even is having direct back-channel meetings with the Putin people.
Much has unfolded since President Putin received my letter last August. He responded in writing, signaling a willingness to engage with me directly and outlining details regarding the Ukrainian children residing in Russia. And since then, President Putin and I have had an open channel of communication regarding the welfare of these children. For the past 3 months, both sides have participated in several back-channel meetings and calls, all in good faith. We have agreed to cooperate with each other for the benefit of all people involved in this war. My representative has been working directly with President Putin's team to ensure the safe reunification of children with their families between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, 8 children have been rejoined with their families during the past 24 hours.
All right, so the point of showing you that is that stuff is happening, and Trump deserves we're past the credit point. Yeah, he deserves the credit. Okay, and he deserved the Nobel. Okay, fine. But he deserves the long leash right now. He deserves the moment. He deserves the moment so that people will be like, you know what? He did the unthinkable in the Middle East. Again, you don't want to be Pollyannish about it and think it's all great immediately and that nothing bad could happen, because of course bad things can happen. But there's been a fundamental altering of the way the entire world looks at that area. Right? They tried it the other way. And it never worked. And there was just intifada after intifada and war after war and war after war. Trump came in, did it differently. And maybe he can do that when it pertains to Russia, Ukraine as well. So put a pin in that and just let's see where we're at in I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So while Trump is literally racking up generational victories across the world, we'll have a bit about some of the people who still don't like him very much on the other side. But first, Noble Gold. Gold has officially gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere, and prices just keep climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Their specialists are trained to help advisors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's DaveRubinGold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. Well, they told you he was Hitler. They told you you were a Nazi. They told you he was a Russian plant. They told you they won the election by 20 extra million votes. They told everybody a whole bunch of lies, inject yourself weird stuff. They told you peace in the Middle East was impossible, and it's all kind of crumbling. And now something else that's crumbling is that some of the very people who tried to get Donald Trump and put him in prison, well, they seem like they're in a bit of trouble themselves. File this one under, this is from Fox News. A federal grand jury in Virginia has indicted New York Attorney General Letitia James on charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. Earlier this year, the Justice Department opened an investigation into James for alleged mortgage fraud after James successfully won a civil case last year against Trump and his Trump organization over allegations of faulty business practices. In a letter, Federal Housing Finance Director Bill Pulte alleged that James could have engaged in mortgage fraud by making false or misleading statements on property records, like a loan application that said her property in Virginia is her primary residence, building record stating her multifamily Brooklyn property incorrectly has 5 residences instead of 4, and a mortgage application that falsely stated James was her father's spouse. Now, for those of you that have been playing along, falsifying documents to get a better loan, that's literally what she was trying to get Trump on, even though he didn't do it and everybody got paid back in full. So lady, did you just need a mirror the entire time? But it couldn't happen to a worse person. Here she is, Letitia, in January of 24, when Donald Trump was on trial, even though he was running for president. And here she is grinning in the courtroom.
Changes now.
There we have the Attorney General, Letitia James, in the front row.
Okay, so is this...
Well, sorry, lady, because now it looks like you did the exact thing you accused him of doing. Every accusation seems to be a confession with these people, but now what does the machine have to do? They have to pretend that what she did just wasn't as bad, even though they ran with Donald Trump doing it for 2 years. So here's CNN suggesting that it's not a big deal that she did all this stuff because it just wasn't a ton of money.
So the indictment accuses James of falsely claiming in loan documents that she would use a home she purchased in Virginia as a second residence that allowed her then to get a better interest rate. Instead, they say she used this home as a rental property. Put this into context for us. How often would DOJ prosecute a case like this?
So bank fraud, or what we consider mortgage fraud type cases, are very common. They're,
something that most U.S. attorneys' offices around the country do on a routine basis. What's different about this case is it is involving a very small amount of money, right? We're talking, almost $19,000. This is not the kind of case that most U.S. attorneys' offices are bringing. Usually they're looking for, mortgage schemes or things that involve a much higher monetary threshold.
That might be true. I don't know what the exact threshold is on the amount of money that they'll go after you for mortgage fraud. So that actually might be true. But the point here, lady, perhaps why they are looking at you is because you tried to jail a man who was running for president for doing nothing, and then you have been caught doing the exact same thing. So whether there was 1 or 2 or 4 or 7 less zeros next to the number is actually largely irrelevant. So as these people get exposed, what do we have to watch out for? Well, we have to watch out for the very same trick they pulled on us for the last decade, which is that you better fear this guy. My general sense is they're going to call him Hitler a little bit less because that didn't work. And they're going to call us Nazis a little bit less because that didn't work. The new move is that everything is going to be based around authoritarianism. So as Donald Trump cleans up the border, as Donald Trump cleans up the blue cities that refuse to clean themselves up, they are going to tell you that he is an authoritarian because an authoritarian wants to make sure you can go out to dinner without being raped. Here's largely irrelevant Barack Obama. Well, I should say, here's Nobel Peace Prize winning Barack Obama talking about that.
Like many of you, I've become increasingly concerned about the rising wave of authoritarianism sweeping the globe. We're seeing politicians target civil society, undermine freedom of the press, weaponize the justice system. And no one is being spared. Even countries that thought they were immune from wholesale assaults on democracy now understand we're all part of this struggle. That's an enormous challenge.
Barry, we're talking about people that need mirrors. How about you guys? Because, of course, it was Joe Biden's Department of Justice, and he was your VP, that was working with big tech companies to silence people during COVID, including me. That would be an assault on free speech. Weaponizing the Department of Justice, again, that would be your guys who did that against Donald Trump. It's just so great seeing how irrelevant he is. He seems like he's deflating in real time, like there's just no juice there anymore. There's just nothing left in him. It's just great. There was a woman who was the vice president under Joe Biden, and she wasn't particularly well liked, wasn't particularly bright, got the gig because she was black and female, didn't know much about anything except concentric circles, and she did know that Russia was big and Ukraine was small. Here she is sitting with this guy, MSNBC's Eugene Daniels. This is the guy who stole my brooch, by the way, and here they are talking about the DOJ targeting people.
I don't know if we can trust what's coming out of the Department of Justice right now. And when you have an administration and individuals who are manipulating the justice system of America in that way, they best understand that this is not only about something that affects the individuals that they're targeting, this affects all of us who believe that, flawed though it may be, that a justice system is actually supposed to be blind in the way that it does its work, not targeting people because of who they are.
Yeah, Joseph just said it while we were watching that. It's like she doesn't even believe that. She's just putting words together that mean absolutely nothing. You guys use the Justice Department against him. It's you guys who refuse to apply the rule of law in blue cities so that he has to come in and clean them up. And most people just want the basics out of government, right? Like just make sure that it's safe when you go out on the street so that you can go to a restaurant or you can take your kid to the park or these other things. And you guys are the ones who have failed that while trying to jail your political opponents. So sorry, this is all falling on deaf ears, but here she is also ramping up the hate and that Trump has declared war on Democrat-run cities because he's trying to get, some people who are shooting people to shoot people a little bit less.
Do you agree, has the President of the United States declared war on cities run by Democrats in this country?
Well, let's just look at the facts and then draw your own conclusion. He is deploying U.S. military to the streets of America, a military that has been set up, stood up, and trained for the most part to do the work of fighting against adversaries, fighting against enemies, and deploying them on the streets of America as though, and he said it, to attack the enemy within. Here in Chicago, I'm told that the helicopters that were descending on an American city were Black Hawks.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what Black Hawks were designed to do?
War, yeah.
War. So I think everyone can draw their conclusions just based on the facts and see that he has definitely decided he's going to use the power of the federal government to attack American cities and the people who live there.
I like how it's about the type of helicopter they're using. Lady, what he's trying to do is clean up Chicago so that people can go to the theater again. Actually, it was because he's doing something, some things changed in Chicago this weekend. Only 2 people were shot dead in Chicago this weekend. You won't know their names because they were obviously Black people shot by Black people. 12 others were shot, but only 2 were killed, so that's pretty good. But again, he's not randomly like, send the Black Hawks to just pick a city and they're throwing a dart at a map. No, he's going to the places where you guys do nothing. And what else has happened on the ground in many of these blue cities? It's that you've allowed masked lunatics, whether they are Antifa or Hamas members or some combination, or now they've got the furries out there. This is a group of people that you would not want to party with. But they are out there, and the machine also doesn't want you to think that Antifa even exists. You'd have to ask the people over at the Portland courthouse that they keep burning down. But here is quote unquote comedian. What are we calling him now? Jimmy Kimmel on that.
You understand, there's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons. We've captured the Chupacabra, everyone. And then it was Trump's turn to ratchet up the rhetoric with fiery images conjured from no one has any idea where.
Look, I'll tell you a little something about Decepticons. Finally, something that I'm qualified to talk about. And his head fell off while we were doing this. I've got Soundwave right here. This is my original Soundwave, 1984. I remember getting into Toys R Us. It was impossible to get Transformers then. They were so freaking hot. You could get GoBots, but nobody wanted the GoBot. And I remember it was about May. My birthday was in June, and I went with my mom and my brother, and I begged and begged, please let me just take it. You don't have to give it to me now. And they held it. They hid it in their closet, and I was able, on June 26, 1984, to get Soundwave, and this is still my original. His head has fallen off. He can't stand anymore. This is banged up Soundwave. He's got Ravage in there, who, of course, cassette that transforms into a panther. And yes, you may say it's ironic that a futuristic transforming robot transforms into a cassette player rendered obsolete by 1987, but still, it was pretty cool at the time. And the point of all of that, Jimmy Kimmel, is that Soundwave here is a fictitious character who fought Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and Jazz. Antifa are crazy people who burn down Pep Boys and Best Buys. That is the fundamental difference. If any of you know where we can send him, I feel like there's got to be a place that I can send Soundwave to get his joints tightened up, and I still know how to transform him perfectly. That would be, put the head back, let's get that fixed. Okay, very good. All of this show to say, like peace in the Middle East, and I get to play with the Transformers. What a great day. All of this to say, let's end the show this way. Which way, Western man? Right? That's what I'm always bringing up to you guys. Like, which way are we going to do this? Are we going to be decent again? Are we going to get over this lunacy, allowing criminality, or not knowing if our genitals match our gender, all of this craziness? Are we going to just keep doing all of the awful stuff? Or are we going to be a little bit better? So 2 things here. So check out this story. So this is one way we can go, guys. We can go this way. And this one's from Long Island. I'm from Long Island, Suffolk County over here. 16 illegal immigrants who were arrested for stealing clothes from a Catholic charity. And you got to give these guys credit for, look at some of the shit that they were up to. But this is one way we can go if we so choose. Go.
You thought you've seen everything. Could you believe people would steal from a clothing bin and that they figure out a way to make money?
Suffolk County officials say a disgraceful scene was played out hundreds of times over the last year. Thieves shoving their entire body into donation bins, then emptying them of clothing intended for people in need.
We didn't know who was doing it, prior to the investigation. They uncovered all of this, and every time they filled us in on what was going on, we were just shaking our head.
All right, first off, I just love like old school Long Island cops with that accent and everything else. But why is it that they didn't think of just making those bins fake? Like it should have been a fake charity bin, and the illegal guy or the criminal hops in there, and then it just closes on him, and then we send him back to El Salvador, and then some senator from Maryland could be like, "I'm going to El Salvador to help the guy who." Okay, that's fine. But like literally stealing from a Catholic charity, so we can do that. We can go that route, guys. If you want to go that route, illegals, criminals, blah 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 blah. Or we can think about the world in a new way. We can be brave. We can fight for goodness. We can put old hatreds aside. We can do all of those things. And here is Jared Kushner, who is the architect of the Abraham Accords and much of what is transpiring in the Middle East right now. He went to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, and he gave a rather extraordinary, just heartfelt. He has a great way of just speaking off the cuff. I mean, I know him. This is him being him, talking about how we can get to a more peaceful world.
I've had the great honor for the last 10 months of working with Steve very closely, even more so in the last month. And I have to tell you, it's been an honor to me to work with such a special man who's approached this impossible task with a full heart and with a full commitment. And when things got tough and we ran into brick walls, every time that happened, we just said, let's make a new plan, let's try again. And that's what being partners with Steve was like. And I also have to say, working with President Trump on this, his commitment to seeing peace, to seeing the hostages return home, to seeing Israel secure and safe, and to seeing the entire Middle East stable and thriving is unmatched. Thank you. Thank you.
Which way, Western man? You guys get it? Like, we can keep going down that road of just lawlessness, craziness, mislabeling people who are trying to do good, or we could actually try to do good, and we could defend the people who are doing good, and we could think about the world in a new way. And we can put all this lunacy of the last however many years, all of the craziness that we deal with, we can put it behind us. Like there's an AI revolution on the way. The Middle East could be more peaceful. Like there's so much goodness, and we just have to get on board that. I'm gonna go have lunch, play with Ravage. Hope you guys have a great day. We got a post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com. And yes, we're live tomorrow, right? Before we leave for Australia. We are live tomorrow, and then we hop on a 6-hour flight to San Fran, and then 14 hours to Melbourne. Maybe I'm gonna watch that movie you like with the little guys with the hairy feet. I'll watch all of them and see what that's like. If I'm gonna do it, it seems like maybe it's the time to do it. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.